Having a political cult member in your family, it'd be like um, every time you expect them to wake up, because it just gets worse and worse and worse, you're always disappointed because of the nature of being a cult member. Any new piece of evidence that comes out, they just find a way to make it go away and invert reality. So basically, the experience of having a cult member in your family is like having a drug addict in your family, in the sense, you always expect there's eventually a point they're going to tap out and realize this is wrong and they need to change, but it never fucking happens because of the faith they have in the cult. Um, every new piece of information that should make them wake up, they just convert into a lie, not true. It's amazing to watch, right? So again, went through this several times now where um the billionaire MAGA delusion, I expected like finally she's gonna wake up, right? The big beautiful bill, now she's gotta wake up. The political moves like tariffs, which are obviously designed to close small businesses to help mega corporations, now she's gonna wake up. Clearly doing everything to sabotage working class Americans, now she's gonna wake up. And it's never, ever, ever true. It never happens. She just finds a way to make it not true, not real, or highlight some putative benefit of the cult that cancels out this overwhelming evidence it's a lie to harm you. I thought for sure the Epstein emails that were released, she would finally fucking wake up, right? Like in these emails, Epstein is clearly saying, of all the degenerates I have met in my life, as a terrible degenerate myself, Trump is the worst. Imagine a statement like that of all the evil shits I've met as an elite at the top of society designed to engage in sex degeneracy with degenerates who are who feel a delusional sense of immortality and power. Trump is the worst. And they still find a way to make it what it's not. It's amazing. They right now on Magasphere, I've been informed by this moron that the line in the emails where Epstein says, "There's one dog not hollering, and that's Trump. It's because one of my girls spent hours with him and she didn't name him." They are converting that into evidence that he's innocent. Can you imagine being that delusional? Anyone can read that statement and know what's being said is this: all the hit dogs are hollering except Trump. Hit dog hollering means you're guilty and you're making a fuss. He literally describes Trump as a hit dog not hollering. And then the next part of the sentence is, it's because even though he spent hours with Virginia, she didn't name him. Anyone with a brain can organize this sentence to mean he's guilty as fuck, but he's not worried because the most high profile victim's too scared to name him. Literally, anyone can interpret that. And Virginia Giuffre, who is the victim, is on record saying, I'm too terrified to name some of these people. We only know about Ehud Barak because despite her using a code word, people figured out it was him. But you could easily imagine, especially with Epstein saying Trump is the worst person I've ever met, he's extremely dangerous, that Virginia, especially since she knew he's the leader of America, it makes sense for Virginia Giuffre, who moved to Australia to get away from these places. It makes sense that she's more scared of the fake leader of America than the fake leader of Israel. She's scared of both. She knows both can kill her. But she's so scared of America and Trump that she just denies it entirely. She doesn't leave any hint or trace. But with Ehud Barak, who she's also very scared of, she's less scared that Israel could kill her, although she's still scared of it. So she mentions it but uses a code name. That's basically what Epstein's saying. He's the worst one I met. He's worse than Ehud Barak. And the hit dog's not hollering because she's too scared to name him. You can basically translate that sentence. And we know that Virginia Giuffre's on record saying, the ones I'm talking about, I'm not scared to talk about. She moved from America to Australia because she was so scared of these people. And she still ended up dead, by the way. And all the patsies are pretending it was suicide. Trauma is hard on your brain, so you kill yourself. Anyone who goes into the narrative that Virginia Giuffre killed herself is part of them. There's absolutely no reason anyone who really cares about cleaning up these slobs would go into that. These people will say Epstein killed himself, but they'll never say Virginia did. I mean, that Epstein was murdered, but not Virginia. It goes to show they don't want justice for victims either. The patsies pretending to be ethical and against all this, they will never say Virginia Giuffre was murdered. But they say Epstein was murdered. Why? Because they really don't want justice for victims either. They want to help the narrative she killed herself, and it's because she was so traumatized from rape she killed herself. But for Epstein, they'll always say that he was murdered, right? It's because they're not so interested in stopping sexual assault. They're not so interested even in stopping abusive people. They're interested in their political goals of getting their Democrat friends in power, right? And actually, the parts of this plot where victims are in secret abused and killed, they secretly like. They're only using it because they want their enemies out of power. And that's exactly why you see this imbalance where they always say Epstein was murdered, but they never say Virginia Giuffre was murdered. They'll go into the narrative, she's the traumatized, she's an empty-headed female body, and given she's a female with no brain, she just had no choice but to axe herself because she couldn't possibly live after this. It's like they give themselves away, right? They only mention Epstein being murdered because they view it as useful to get their enemies. But it's almost like they're just like the Dems and the Repubs, and Trump was a Democrat when all this was going on, by the way. Bill Clinton. The highest people in this were Democrats at the time. The part where it's actually involving like stopping abusive people, they have no interest in. They just using it to get their friends in power, right? So that's exactly why you see this imbalance. They never say Virginia was murdered, but they always say Epstein was. Because it's the part of the plot that they were all together in abusing female bodies, belittling them, saying they're crazy, saying they're stupid, saying they can't cope with life, that they're objects. They're all down with that. And you can see that imbalance why they all go with the obvious lie Virginia Giuffre was killed herself. But when it comes to like getting their other male friends in power, like these corrupt Democrat cronies versus the MAGA cronies, then they'll be like, yeah, he was murdered. Trump did it. They're gross. They're so gross. But anyway, back to the original topic, the level of cult-like delusion where you can see one line and this statement's in odds of everything else Epstein's saying, like he was such a perv, he walked into a window, he was my best friend up until 2017. I feel like I'm gonna get killed, so I want to rat on Trump now for protection and be a whistleblower. He's the worst one I've met in my job of being a degenerate with the worst degenerates in the world. He's the scariest and the worst one. They ignore all that and then they focus on this contorted statement that's more guilt, where they can make it not true in their mind, where he's comparing Trump to a hit dog hollering, except he's not hollering because one of the notorious victims, the most famous one, Virginia Giuffre, despite spending hours with him, never named him. He didn't say he didn't do anything. He said she wouldn't name him. And MAGA cult is taking this to mean he's in it. It goes to show you can't leave through logic and evidence what you didn't arrive to through logic and evidence, right? So if you're in like a religious spiritual faith thing, evidence is useless to you because you did not arrive to that conclusion through data, evidence, logic. You arrived to it through vibes and faith. And the only way for you to leave something like that is to wake up and realize your vibes are wrong, right? It just has to happen inside. No amount of data is going to change you from that, right? There's a difference between believing something from ignorance and believing something from faith. If you're ignorant, data can affect you, right? So if you believe something that's wrong, but you don't have faith in it, you're not uplifted in it, you're not clinging to it for some other reason. If someone's gonna like, hey, look at this information, you'll be like, oh, I must be wrong. That's a logical behavior. Ignorance corrected with information, right? If you've arrived to something through faith, vibes, uplift, emotion, and hey, look at this information, you're like, no, 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 actually, what this means is my savior was the one man who was so good, Epstein couldn't entrap him. And you'll just keep doing this over and over. And for people on the outside who are not like this, who are logical people, who are immune to faith and spiritual uplift and group mob fervor, they'll just keep looking at you like, when's she going to wake up? And it never happens. And every time you think it's going to happen, it doesn't. Really remarkable to witness. You can see the same thing to a lesser degree with the Democrat loyalists, right? Like they're not nearly as cult-like as MAGAs. MAGAs completely evoke religious brain. They're Christian like they're MAGA. Like it's just this vibe of identity, and they can't shake it. They have to defend it no matter what. It's who they are. It's like they're pathologically enmeshed with this political cult, the way they are with their Christian identity or something. But there are elements of cult illogical groupthink in Libs too. And you can see this with stuff like the ones who look at what's going on with Epstein and rather than conclude, holy shit, all these evil motherfuckers gotta go. It should be a big warning that Trump was a high profile person who was a Democrat while this was going on. That should be really telling me something about this fucking party. They need to be flushed down the toilet. We need to wipe the slate clean and do over. All these people are controlled by money and they're evil. None are in it. Rather than them conclude that, you see the liberal Democrat group think like they'll focus on what their leaders who are corrupt, dirty Democrats on New York Times bestseller lists. They're just like MAGA for a different audience, including trying to stoke the culture war, including trying to hide and defend the billionaire elite. Rather than them deductive logic, all of these people gotta go. They all need to be flushed. They're all criminals. They're all rapists. They're all evil. They're all slobs. None of them are fighting for us. They're all pretty much on the same team. It's just they're kind of punching each other for the spot at the table, right? Like, what I mean by that is nobody's really going against the billionaire class. They're all owned by them. But they'll punch each other for stuff like, I want to be the House Speaker. I want to be the president. So they're fighting for privileges in a corrupt system. And you're beholden to this to help these parasites who do nothing for you but conspire to ruin you, having total faith in them and looking at this Epstein shit as some kind of evidence the Dems could and should win now, versus everyone needs to be flushed. Put them in the toilet, pull the fucking handle. But I view this as lesser of a cult-like thing because they're not going overtime to like make people directly involved good. Like a lot of them will say, I want Bill Clinton arrested too, right? They're still cult-like because they're refusing to come to the deductive logic conclusion they are all corrupt. Obama knew, everyone knew, all these people were saying are good knew, and they helped. Rather than them come to that obvious conclusion, they're choosing to polarize this as MAGA and Trump are really bad. And any of the Democrats who are named are also bad. But they don't want to come to the next level jump. Obviously, they were all involved, right? Even if they didn't rape kids, they helped the raping of kids, right? So, yeah, cult members will blow your fucking mind. You will just see shit like, finally, they gotta wake up. And then you go and talk to them, and they're like, actually, Jesus flew on a cloud, and this email from Epstein proves it. When Jesus on the cloud, he said, my son Trump is trying to stop you. And then Epstein said my power as a bad pedophile is so weak before Trump because the victim wouldn't name him. He's innocent, clean in the swamp. You're just like, oh fuck. Every time you're sure this is the day, they're gonna realize I'm in a billionaire cult for religious brained morons. And then they just come back with some amazing gymnastic exercise of self delusion. This has got to be what it's like to have a heroin addict in your family, man. You're just like, oh shit, he's got to wake up now. He's in jail. And then you just like, oh no, man, he back on the street doing dope again. That's a lot like what is having a MAGA cult member, where you, a normal person, sees logic and data, and you can come to the conclusion. They can't because of they're not doing this through logic, but vibes, emotion, and impulse. So logic will just bounce off that shit like water off a duck's back. Use another phrase of speech. Like he's really calling him a hit dog, not hollering. You take that to mean he's innocent versus what he's saying to Ghislaine in his email is she was too scared to name him. Probably has something to do with him being the worst man I ever met. For real, for real, for real.